Welcome back to a new episode of What's a 9 to 5. I am your host, Rogue Mero, and today we're joined by a very special guest for me because she's my best friend, Cece,
Hello, people.
or CeceBlu NYC, as other people might know her as. Well, today's a different topic we're going to cover. It's actually a little bit, not, I wouldn't necessarily call it off-brands, but we're taking a different route in the type of conversation we're having today. And I thought that what better time and who better to have the conversation with than with my best friend, because we both, for one, understand each other and come from a very similar place when it comes to talking about the topic. Now, it is relevant to the angle in which I try to go to when it comes to everything on this platform, which is obviously, success and bettering yourself as a human. But it is a very touchy subject that I thought that I should touch base on because it's something that I know I'm not the only person that has gone through, and she's not the only person that has gone through it. A lot of people have. So today we're going to talk about loss and how it can really impact you and how to try your best, or just give you basically our insight on how we've tried to move forward and get ahead following the loss of a parent. Now, some of you may or may not know, but I lost my mother at the top of last year. And Cece lost her father about, 7 years now?
Yeah, just made 7 years. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so it's different in terms of the angle when it comes to that as well, because of the simple fact that hers is, as people would say, it's older, and mine is a little bit more recent, but it never really changes no matter how much time passes. And I feel like a lot of people tend to think that time makes things better, and it kind of you never really fully heal from something like that. But yeah, so yeah, it's a very touchy subject. But I'm happy to be bringing this conversation forward because I know, again, like I said, we're not the only people that have gone through it. Now, me losing my mother at the top of last year, and it's also a very big part of why I haven't been, why we hadn't recorded in the last year.
I mean, also due to COVID.
I mean, COVID too. It didn't really help. It was a lot of shit going on.
Yeah. It was a crazy year, I think, for everybody, on top of, again, having a loss. So, like with the loss of a parent, I know some of you guys listening are probably like, oh, what does the loss have to do with what's a 9 to 5? Which it all ties in because it really like held you back. Mm-hmm. That even with Corona happening, like it was just like something that's just like you didn't want to do anything, you didn't want to work, like the entrepreneur in you was just like it just died as well. So what we want to focus on is kind of like, how did it affect you? Like, how did the loss affect you when it came to like motivation, working, your drive, your ambition? Like, what did it do to you?
Right. I personally feel like I never thought that was something that would ever be an issue for me. Like, I've always been a self-motivated and self-driven person. So following the loss of my mother, it was kind of like I was lost in a sense. It's like I have a clear plan and I know exactly who I want to be and where I want to be. But going through a loss like that, you kind of just feel like you're just, I was just like a puzzle that couldn't put the pieces together anymore. Like I just couldn't figure it out. And my best friend seeing that, because she obviously she's one of my biggest supporters and she's been there with me through all of it. She got to see that part of me and she kind of tries to snap me out of it. And I never really understood that because I was around when she had lost her father. And I never understood that mindset because when she had lost her father, she went through something similar. She had like a whole year where she just like, it's just like, I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care.
It happens.
Fuck work. Fuck money. I don't care. Like,
you kind of like just give up as well. But you snap out of it after a while. You do. But the first year was like no work, no nothing. I didn't care if no income was coming in. Mm-hmm. It was just one of those things like things will figure themselves out. Like, I don't care. But with time, and you're still early in the game, as I say, when it comes to a loss. I'm 7 years in, which I always tell you it gets easier. The first year, I'm not one to tell anybody like snap out of it, like it's gonna get better, like you have to go through it. And like I always used to tell you too, like nobody understands the loss of a parent until that person also goes through it. So you never want to hear like it's gonna be okay, are you okay? Like
I think that was like probably the most, like were one of the biggest pet peeves for me, was when people would try to sympathize with me or no, not sympathize, empathize with me in reference to my feelings, and it's kind of like
Like,
you
no.
you don't get it, like, and you won't. I don't get mad at them, but it's kind of like you won't get it, because that type of loss is just it's unimaginable. If you haven't gone through it, it's unimaginable. And when you're going through it, it damn near feels like it's unbearable. Like, it feels like, well, damn, like, what the fuck? Like, what do I do after this?
But with you now, it making a year, you're a little over a year now with it. Like, are you like moving on? Is it helping you to that? Because you're more focused now. So I'm asking that question for that reason. Like, you're working now. You're back to your potting. You're doing things that are a little bit more motivating. I mean, it's still on the front of your mind clearly because it's
Right.
still fresh. But what has changed?
I think for me, I just kind of have tried to just throw myself back out there, and then just hope that maybe I'll start feeling the way that I used to feel, instead of just like sulking in my emotions and just not wanting to do anything. And just like, I'm just trying to take a little bit more of an initiative in making sure that I'm just not doing anything. Like, it's a constant battle on a daily, trying to pick and choose what emotions to put at the forefront of my mind. Because at the end of the day, that thought is still on the back of my mind at all times. I'm just trying to find a different way to use it, instead of allowing it to make me sad and keep me from doing things, kind of use it as a motivation. And, even if I do get sad, accept the fact that that sadness is still there and that it'll always be there, but kind of just find a way to make it benefit me in a way.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, I'm glad that you've started to do something.
I've started. I'm not gonna say
Yeah,
that I got
no,
it all
no.
together, because I'm not gonna lie. I still got
Yeah.
days that it's just like, yo, nah.
I'm just glad where you are. You're taking steps, and it's just one step at a time. As far as in like your mom's loss, like I can speak on my end. Like, what about your loss has changed you to want to do maybe something different or similar after the loss of your mother? Like with me, for example, like the debt that comes with death. Like, you don't realize that a lot of people can't afford to die. It costs the funeral costs, the burial costs, the where you lay them costs. Like, everything is just money. So you don't think that while you're alive, because it's not a conversation that you want to have. But where I'm at with
It
it,
costs to die.
like
I'm not gonna.
whether you're working a 9 to 5 or not, like you need to come up with this money when somebody unfortunately passes away. And where I'm at with it now, after the loss of my parent, now being a new mom, I don't want to have my child go through that, because you don't want to mourn and have to deal with the debt. So it's like, how do I change that cycle where old school parents are like just living? They're just living, just one thing at a time.
They're not
and,
planning for some shit like
you're
that
not
to
planning.
happen.
You're not planning to set up your kids.
Right.
So now I'm like, I'm going to change it. Let me get the life insurance. Let life insurance cover that. So at least you don't have to do the mourning and do the finances that come with it. So that's where I want to change something now. So I don't know what you've taken, or
I mean, what I've taken from it is basically just making sure that I'm setting my children and, just anybody else that comes from me and after me, just making sure that when I leave, I have something to leave them and set them up with. Like, my mother passed away and left what I would essentially call opportunities to me and my
Definitely.
brothers. And I'm talking about like this little Puerto Rican lady from Puerto Rico came here when she was 18. And even though Puerto Rico is a part of the United States, essentially she's from a different country. She's from the Caribbean. She's coming here. She's busting her ass, working a regular ass
minimum
job.
wage.
Minimum wage all the way, and just figured out a way to make shit happen and then still be able to leave us something. And that was a real big eye opener for me too, because it's just like, I've always had that mindset because she raised me that way. But to see it become something that's tangible, that's something that's real, that she actually left us something, that's something that I want to focus on moving forward in my life. I plan on leaving a legacy. Like, I want to leave my family. I want to make sure my kids is good. You know what I mean? And she started that, and I'm really happy to be able to say that she was smart enough and strong enough to make it happen. It kind of makes you think like, damn, well, if somebody that didn't have as many resources as you made it happen, you
can
with all
definitely do
these
it.
resources, why the fuck can't you make it happen?
And that's where we mess up at. I think like the younger generation, we're kind of just living our life too, which is similar to what the old folks were doing. They just living their lives as well. Is what we're doing. But your mother was a great example as far as in like busting her ass to make sure to leave something for the next generation. And things like that also, you know, whether she was still here or not, like you left something behind for me to now take care of. You know, like now this is something I can get income from. This is something that I can continue doing if I want to keep it around, you know, for if when you bear children.
And then when I die, I leave it down to my
Yeah,
children. Like
yeah.
it's something that literally is generational. So that is something that I did learn from my mother's passing. Emotions. Wow. That is one of the biggest parts about that. I've always had an issue, not necessarily an issue. I just never really been the sensitive type. And then I noticed that after my mother's passing, I was a lot more sensitive to a lot more things. I wasn't as cold hearted, or I wasn't as like I don't know. I just became a lot more caring, and I started caring about a lot more things that maybe other people wouldn't care about, because I saw the value in things that everybody takes for granted. You know, we take life for granted, and we take people for granted, and we think like, hey, she's here. I don't got to worry about her going anywhere. She's always going to be here. And it's just like, no, that's not how life works. God forbid something happens. She could walk outside, some shit will happen, and then boom. Instead of me leaving her with I love you, making sure that I gave her as much love as I could because she's in front of my face, I took for granted that I just expected to always see her and that I would always have a chance, and you don't always have a chance to do something. So in that, I feel like I've grown in that aspect of emotion, almost to a fault, I feel like, on my end, because I feel like I'm doing it because I don't, it's something new and it's something that's just naturally happening within me, but it's weird for me, so I don't really know how to handle it. It's kind of like I'm in it, and then I'll just be like, yo, ooh, I don't even know why I feel like this. I don't even know why I'm treating it like this. But for me, I think it's just more so I grew a fear of losing anything that I love or I care about now, which is kind of whack, to be honest.
It's crazy that you feel like that, because what I took from it is like, if I can lose my father, who was like the biggest love of my life, then like anything else is gonna be easy to me. That's, so you see how like opposite.
I feel like that too, but because I definitely feel like that. I was like, yo, if I lost my mother, like there's nothing on this, like there's
It's
nothing
gonna hurt me more than this. So it's like,
unless, I mean, God forbid, you know, my daddy. Everybody knows
yeah,
I love
yeah.
my daddy, but I'm like, no, there's nothing in this world that'll hurt me more than this. But at the end of the day, it's just like you 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 still take for granted these people that you have in your lives. Like maybe the love that I have for my mother is not the same type of love. It's a different type of love that I have for you, or a different type of love
Yeah,
that
it's
I would
gonna
have
be
for a
completely
significant
different.
other, and then other people in my family. But at the end of the day, it's like people are not permanent. Things are not permanent. So you got to make sure that you say those I love yous. You got to make sure that you put
Your
some
best
effort
foot
and time
forward.
into those relationships. And you know, that's just the biggest thing that I took for it. I took from it. I know that that's the biggest thing I've ever gone through, but I'm so scared. Not necessarily. Yeah, I guess I could say like I'm so scared to lose something that I care about. It's weird
You
because
see, I'm not.
it's weird though, because it's like I can get to a place where it's just like, all right, bet, well, I just don't give a shit, like whatever. But then in the back of my mind, I'm gonna be like, well, damn, like God forbid something happens, and then I
And you'll
come back,
feel like this.
right, and then I'll come back to it and I'll be like, well, look, I don't want it to be like this, or with anybody. Like I just choose not to live in that anger place, because you get angry at somebody, you don't speak to them for months. God forbid
And
something
something
happens, and the
happens.
last thing that you could say that you had with somebody was some bullshit. Don't nobody want to go through that.
I don't know. I don't know. It's been 7 years for me, so I have a different mentality, and I'm sure you'll get there too. Maybe not. Some people, I've met people that their parents, I mean, older people, like somebody's parent already that lost their parent, and they're still till this day, like when the day comes, it's like crazy to them, and it's been like 20 years or something like that. I have my moments.
I think that's another thing that a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah.
Everybody deals with grieving different,
A lot of days
and I've
are.
learned to deal with it. I've learned to understand that.
I've learned to speak about it and not get emotional anymore. That took a while. Where every conversation before was just like, if it was about like a parent, it would be like, whoa, touchy. I don't want to speak about it. Or if it was like Father's Day, I don't want to entertain it. I don't care if my boyfriend's a father. I don't care. Like I don't care. You're a father. You still have your father. I don't have my father. I don't want to talk about it.
It's weird. You see, that's another thing. I don't know. I'm just putting so much more value into things nowadays, because now I just see, like, for example, like I have friends that be beefing with their mothers. Or
Yeah.
I know people that just like they don't take advantage of the opportunity they have to have that person there. And I find myself constantly being like that
Hey,
motivator, like, girl, like you don't know what you like, you really think that you got all this time and you really
you
think that
don't.
these arguments are worth it, and they're really not. Like, you really do not. Once this person's gone, you really have no way to get back. You don't get back time. You don't get back none of that. So instead of arguing with your mother, you should really just try to mend things or find a medium. Like, yeah, y'all don't get along, but pick and choose your battles. What's more important? In the long run, this is all you really have left.
It also depends on the relationship people carry with their parent,
That's
because
true.
not everybody has a good
But think
relationship.
about the
I've met
people.
so many people who are raised with their grandmother or raised with an aunt or
I could get that, but think about the people that lose their parent, don't have relationships with their parents and lose their parents. They still mourn and they still grieve, and they're coming from a place of losing this person, and then everything,
guilt.
all the time, guilt, and all the time that they missed out on them when they were alive.
Yeah.
It's like, still overall, essentially, regardless of what relationship you have, try to make it the best that you can make it.
Yeah.
At least if you try. This is how I feel about everything on, like, in this world. Everything that I do for me is just like, if I've tried my best with any situation, with any project, with anything, if I know that I've tried my best, I know that if I leave this earth, I will be happy with what happened, because I did everything that I
As you
could.
should with everything that you do.
And that might be a reason why I be going extra hard with certain things, because I just feel like I'm not done yet. Like, this is not my best. So I'm gonna keep trying until I do my best. And when I do my best, I'll be like, all right, then I could be calm and I could sit back and just be like, all right, well, it is what it is. Like, I did everything that I could.
Do you feel like your mom passing has motivated you to do things or has slowed you down?
I'm not gonna lie, it slowed me down tremendously. Like, a lot.
I mean, again, it's fresh.
Yeah,
you know?
but I just never really
You've
I've
never been this.
I was gonna say, like, I've just
Like,
never been the
ever.
person that I am right now, and I'm obviously making strides towards. Obviously, no one sees this part of me. Everybody just sees what I do. They don't see, like, everything in the back. You know, what happens behind the scenes and everything that it takes for me to make certain things happen. I've never been this. It slowed me down tremendously because, again, I've always been the type to put my emotions on the back burner, and now I'm dealing with all these extra emotions that I have no clue what to do with, that it's taking away from my focus and my drive, because my drive has been it's been the leading force in everything that I do, and now I'm leading with emotion instead of strategy, or, like, my mental ability. Is just more like fucking emotions, and it's
You
just too
see,
much.
with me, the first year, like I mentioned earlier, with me, it's been like the first year was just like really bad. I did use my father's death as like a crutch in a sense. So it was kind of like, don't talk to me, don't ask me if I'm gonna go work, don't ask me if I want to go out. I don't care how I look. Like, I got bad acne that year, like hair loss, everything. But it got to a point where I was just like, snap out of it. Snap out of it. Like, I went to therapy. I mean, again, these are things behind closed doors that nobody knows. You go to therapy. I was going twice a week. They then try to offer pills. Pills are not going to do anything. I gave the pills right back to the doctor. Like, I don't need this. I just need help, not medication that's going to make me feel stuck for 3 hours.
Do you feel like talking to them helped?
It did, because it's somebody on the outside that can just listen. Like, if I went and talked to you, and it's like, again, you don't know what it is to lose your parents, so you're just sitting there listening, but like telling me it's gonna be okay. You don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
Where these people are just like helping you cope. So once I felt like I was done with therapy, then I was just like, you have to want to move on, though.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to move on. I was tired of being home, like asking my brother to pay my phone bill because I have no fucking money. And, where my mind was just like, I don't care where my next dollar comes from. But no, you do need a dollar, like, tomorrow.
I think another thing that I've learned, too, is to understand that it's literally everything starts and ends with yourself, right? So these emotions that I'm sulking in, it's in me right now, but who's going to stop it? No matter who I talk to, no matter who I give my time to, no matter what place on earth. I've tried to sit here and escape my feelings by traveling every 2 weeks, going here and going there, buying this and buying that. And it's just like,
yeah, you go right back home to the same feeling.
none of that changes how overall I'm going to feel in the end internally. So it's like, it's really sitting down, and I've gotten to the place right now where I've acknowledged that I'm the only person that's in the way of where I'm going to be. And it's okay to go through your emotions, but you have to, at a certain point, you have to be okay with the fact that this is just life and this is what you're going to go through. Accept your feelings and just try your best to move forward from them. Do things that make you feel good, but everything has to be internal work. I'm in a very internal stage right now where I'm just trying to heal myself, not only from, not only from my best friend no longer being here, but kind of just also with like past traumas. It's like when something so tragic happens, it's like everything is, it just comes back. It just brings back all those emotions.
Or you
So
ask yourself, like, what are you going to do now? Like, who am I going to talk to about, there's certain things that, like us, we're best friends, we'll talk about everything, but you had a different bond with your mom. Like,
absolutely.
the coolest mom ever. So you were, like, open and honest with her. So, like, when
Absolutely.
certain things happen now, it's just like, okay, so who do I go to now? So you have to learn to move on from that, to understand that.
And learning that it's really in yourself. Like, I feel like that's where I'm at right now. I'm really at the point where I'm learning that until I do the work that I need to do internally, I'm always gonna feel like I'm lost.
But what you also, I always tell you what you need to understand too, where that's what I took from it after my year of like heavy mourning. It's like my mom, like your mom, would not want to see you like this. Like, she would have cursed you out. Like, all this
Yeah.
time off you taking, she would have called you all type of bums. Like, you're doing nothing. What do you think you're gonna be living in my house like this? So you have to now have those conversations. Not like not constantly thinking about the sad, but like the good, knowing that your mother is gonna be like, bitch.
Yeah, you know what I
Get
find
up.
crazy about that is like I get that and I definitely understand that, but at the end of the day, it's like I've gotten that same attitude from her. It's just when it's not happening anymore, no matter how much you tell yourself, like, oh, well, this person wouldn't want that. It's kind of like, well.
Yeah, but why choose the negative out of something?
That's why I'm saying that internal work is it's very important, because if you don't do that internal work and you don't really heal within yourself and understand that you're the only person that's in the way of your basic, like, your future, then it doesn't matter what you do.
Like with me, after that year and I snapped out of it, I said, my father would have been like, don't be a bum, because he was always about have $1 in your pocket. So once that year, that hump, I got over it, I was just like, what? Poppy would have cursed me out.
You know what it was for me too? I think that because it wasn't like a factor of me needing anything. Like, I didn't need anything. I had money. I had everything. And I guess that's the reason why I was so like in that space of my mom, because it's just like everything else was fine. Everything else in my life is okay. Like, I'm doing fine. I'm not gonna get evicted. Like, I have a roof over my head. I got clothes. I could do whatever the fuck I want to do on this planet, literally right now. And all I want to do
is be with my mom.
Yeah. So it's just like, it's hard to kind of take yourself out of that negative state of mind, like, of those emotions, because you're not lacking in any other place, if that makes sense. But until you really understand that you being in those emotions is what's stopping you from moving forward.
Yeah,
I got to a place where I was just like, yo, girl, I get it. It's been a year. The pandemic did not happen. I feel like if it wasn't for the pandemic, I probably still would have been working. I would have eventually just forced myself to get into that place. But that whole break, it didn't do anything but drive me deeper into depression.
Stuck in the house and
right.
Just
I wasn't one of those people that kind of came out on top. I was just making it, like,
what I could
emotionally.
What I could say though, and it's like unfortunate to the people who have lost a parent during the pandemic, where I told you, like, thankfully,
right. I do say that too.
Thankfully she passed right before this happened, because the way that you couldn't see a parent, the way you can't bury a parent, the way you can't have a funeral.
No, I would have.
Like, imagine the pain that you would have still been going through, because who are you to tell me I can't bury my parent? Who are you to tell me I can't go see them at the hospital, because COVID happened shortly right after? So it's just like, at least thank God for that as well. So you'll just tell yourself, like, at least you spent those last moments, like, literally with your mother.
Absolutely.
Because look, my grandfather passed away during the pandemic, and this was in Dominican Republic, and they couldn't do anything. They took him literally from the hospital straight to bury him. You couldn't do nothing else.
Yeah, my dad's family, that happened. A lot of my dad's family had passed away during the pandemic, and that happened as well. They couldn't have any burials. They couldn't do anything. And that's another thing that I do say that, because we've had this conversation, and I've told you, like, I'm very grateful that it happened when it did, if it was going to happen at all.
Right.
However, which I mean, obviously, like I very like sympathize with everyone in reference to that, because I could only imagine. It's like losing a parent is one thing, but then in the way that you lose them, and the aftermath, and not being able to honor and mourn correctly, or the way that you see fit, it can be a very it can take a very big toll on you.
Definitely.
Overall, the conversation that we're having is just basically to kind of just keep it real, to be honest. Loss is something that a lot of people have dealt with, especially over the course of time right at this second. Like, everyone's been losing a lot of people. And I noticed, I don't know if it was a pattern or what it was. It could have just been the beginning of the pandemic. But after my mother had passed away, I knew a lot of people that had lost their parents. So having this conversation for me was important, because I know I'm not the only person, and I know she's not the only person that's trying to come off. I'm not trying to get over something like that, or trying to move forward with something like that. It's not something that you can ever really forget about. It's not something you can
It's not something you get over.
Right. It's not something that you ever get over, but learning to really deal with it is what's more important. And for me, what I would really want somebody to take away from when it comes to this conversation is kind of really finding the strength within yourself to get up and do it and do what you have to do. Because the saddest part about this is that no matter if our world stops, the world doesn't stop. Those bills keep coming. Life keeps going. Outside is still moving. Everybody's still smiling and partying, and you just sitting there like,
what else?
What's next?
Yeah.
And you really have to really sit there and think to yourself, like, whatever it is that it takes to heal yourself internally, because that's where it starts. It's not masking it. It's not indulging in acts that suppress your emotions. It's not, self-medicating. It's not any of that. It's really trying to do internal work and find some peace within yourself to eventually find some peace within that fact that that person is no longer there.
And even if you start like a business that it's in relation to your parent, like maybe they did something that you always wanted to do, so now let me do it. So they can always live on. So like my father was a construction worker. I mean, I'm not Bob the Builder, but like if I did want to get into that field just to make me feel better about it, like do something, create a business, start something under your parents' name, keep it going. You have a child, maybe name it your parents' name. I don't know. I just had a child. I ain't naming my father's name, but
imagine
just little. I can't picture myself.
Cash
name. Jorge. But just keep
Cash
going.
Jorge.
Keep going, man. Life goes on, man.
Right. That is true. I mean, be on the lookout, because the Angelina will be coming to fruition very soon. It's in the works, but that is something that I've also tried to indulge in, is just really try to put all of everything that I have, I'm trying to put into being a better person. And I just hope that this conversation helped someone. If not, I mean, I don't see how it would. I just want everybody to know that you're not the only person going through it. Trying to get past shit is hard. Trying to be successful is hard in itself already. Doing it while you trying to get over such a huge loss is even harder. So if anyone, ever feels, if this touched you in some way, or if you feel like you want to elaborate more on this conversation, feel free to send us a DM.
Yeah.
Again, mine is Rogue Marrow, CeceBlu NYC. It'll all be tagged under the video, and
just let us know
in the Instagram post. And if you want a part 2, we could always bring it back. I just feel like these are very important conversations. Make sure y'all tune in to the next episode, this episode, and everything after this. It was great having this conversation. I hope y'all enjoyed.
Later.